Now, I do not know how hot the road to 2026 is getting, but one thing for sure, by the time we are done with the general elections in 2026, some will be burnt to ashes and others burnt to perfection, just like gold. We are coming to you live from Nile Avenue. You are watching UBC TV. Time for Good Morning Uganda. My name is Julie Nantaba Musisi, and I am with Robert Chirabo Nyonyi Ntono here to take your day as we start it, being the first one to start your day. So it's such a pleasure and an opportunity that we do not take for granted that you are joining us to watch the show. Good morning. Now, a supporter of the NRM in Luwero has petitioned the party's electoral commission asking it to disqualify one of the contestants, aspirants for the Katikamu North parliamentary seat, Ronald Ndaula, claiming that he was announced bankrupt by court in the year 2020. That means he cannot contest for any political office until the matter is settled by court. How far this goes, indeed, we are watching. Some will be burnt to ashes and others burnt to gold, burnt to perfection, just like gold. But also still matters politics. The NRM Electoral Commission Chairperson Tanga Odoi officially started the nomination of the NRM SEC yesterday, 1st July 2025, and he told the media that the forms of expression for the post of NRM Chairperson and flag bearer have been printed after two other persons showed interest. Now, Tanga Odoi, who had refused the two contestants to the two top NRM positions yesterday, actually cleared the queries and released the forms. Several members of the party have been nominated, including 250 members showing interest for the SEC positions. And the nominations for the SEC members continue this week until Friday, with the exception of the president, who will be nominated lastly on Saturday, the 5th of July. But also in news that could be exciting, hopefully keep people disciplined, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has approved lenacapavir to the expectation of Ugandan health scientists. Lenacapavir is an HIV injectable pre-exposure prophylaxis that is administered twice annually to HIV-negative individuals to prevent them from acquiring HIV. Now, the global dream of ending HIV by 2030 is nearing reality following the approval of lenacapavir by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration on the 18th last month. Now, this is something that Robert has been talking about, and I will allow him speak more into it as he's superly excited by this particular piece of news. Robert, this is something that has excited
Good
me.
morning, Julie.
Good morning. How are you?
How I am very fine, and I hope every Ugandan is. But in case you're not, well, we are here to cheer you up and, of course, let you know what is happening globally and also back home. Now, why am I excited? First and foremost is Uganda was part of this research.
Yeah.
Now, Uganda, South Africa, United States, and when I talk of United States, I also have Brazil in there. These are the countries that participated, where we had millions of people who are administered with this drug at high risk of contracting HIV/AIDS, and none of them did contract. Now, Uganda, we had a lead scientist, who is Dr. Flavia Matovu Chiwewa, the director of research, Makerere University, Johns Hopkins University Research Association. So that is the joy that I have, that for such a global breakthrough, and Uganda, we had tests carried out in Mubende, Kasanda, Masaka, and Kalangala.
Right.
So they were looking at young girls, women and young girls. More of these, some were prostitutes doing the sexual business, others were working in bars, those at high risk.
That is a relief, because when you talked about this test being carried out, given this drug, this injection, and then tested to see if they would acquire, I was wondering how.
So they first tested them that these people were 100% negative,
right?
Administered the drug, followed for a long period, and actually all the people, all that were used, that is for Uganda. For us, we did young girls and women at high risk. Okay. Now, the United States did on homosexuals, that's men that sleep with men, and also women that are transgender. So they were also administered.
Right.
So, and South Africa also worked on young girls at high risk. We know the prevalence rate in South Africa when it comes to HIV/AIDS. Almost every 1 in 10 young girls or adolescents you meet is HIV positive. So why I'm very excited that Uganda were part of this research. But also, as I'm excited, yesterday night after watching, reading here, to affirm this or confirm this, it reminded me of my beloved ones that have lost due to HIV/AIDS.
Right.
If you are here, I want to accept and believe that almost in every family in Uganda, there is a person who they loved so much. We have orphans because of HIV/AIDS. And I asked myself, how I wish this lived in this day and age, where a person would get this injection twice a year, 2 times a year, and no matter your exposure, you don't contract HIV/AIDS. Now, people may ask, but is this real? Lenacapavir has been around for some time, but has been used for treatment. How? Now, in HIV/AIDS treatment, we have what we call phases.
Right.
Now, if you're put on the first drug line and you don't respond, you're put on the second line of treatment. If you don't respond, you're put on the third line of treatment. Now, those days, if you didn't respond to the third line of treatment, you are going to die because now the drugs cannot work on you. But this very drug, lenacapavir, was used that they administer it to you. And guess what? Once it was administered to you, then your viral load would be suppressed. Now, that means, and in the HIV line treatment, they called this picking someone out of the grave. Because the first 3 lines of treatment, most people comply to first, most. Then a few second when the first line has failed of treatment. Now, there are few people who may not respond to the third, and previously, before discovering this drug, those people it was an automatic ticket to death, that all the 3 lines have failed, but when they apply this, it suppresses your viral load completely. And what do we mean by suppressing the viral load? You talked about ending HIV by 2030.
30 years.
Now, this is what the globe was looking at, that let's have 95% of our population tested for HIV/AIDS. Now, the 95% that have tested for HIV/AIDS, let's have 95% of them, those that are positive, go on ARVs or treatment. Now, when they go on treatment, let's have them stick to this treatment. 95% of those that tested, your country must test 95%. The 95% of them go on treatment. Now, 95% of them that are on treatment, if they suppress their viral load, what do we mean? When a person suppresses their viral load, and this is where, Judy, you are born-again Christian, and I am a born-again Christian, and many faithful. You see, when you stick to your treatment of HIV/AIDS, and you abide by the regulations, now your viral load is suppressed. Now, some simple HIV tests may not sense that you're positive. Someone who has stuck to their treatment. Now, many are deceived at that point that yes, you're healed. I don't deny the power of God to heal. Now, when you've suppressed your viral load, that's why when many say naonyezebwa and they go off treatment, because you're not on treatment, well, your immune system is weakened again, the virus springs up, and many die.
Right.
So we can end HIV/AIDS, we can end new infections. If everyone tests, please go and test, because you're not going to take lenacapavir when you've not tested.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. That is pertinent information that you should work with, but also exercise wisdom in all of it, especially for Christians.
It's not a time to jubilate. Let's go out on, the word is big, but let's go out and live
exercise wisdom,
lives.
and above all else, I hope this is not a form of permission for you to be reckless with your life. At the end of the day, have the boundaries clear. And for my belief, at least sex is for marriage. That's it. But that is my belief. But let's have a look at what is on the local scene.
Well, let me go to our local stories this morning, and we'll begin with here Government, I want to start with good news for teachers.
Right.
Now, government has reached an agreement with the arts teachers who have been on a sit-down strike for almost a month to call off the strike. The Minister for Public Service, Muruli Mukasa, said the decision was made after a meeting with President Yoweri Museveni on Monday, who agreed to enhance their salary starting next financial year. For the last 3 weeks, the arts and teachers have been on a strike demanding a commensurate pay with their science counterparts. The Minister for Public Service announced that government has agreed to increase the arts teachers' salary by 100% starting 2026-2027 financial year. While meeting the Arts and Humanities Teachers Union leaders at State House, President Museveni tipped the teachers on possibility of free housing for teachers and education for their children. Wow. State Minister for Finance Amos Lugorobi assured the arts teachers of their commitment to implement the government decision. The State Minister for Higher Education, John Chrysostom Muyingo, urged the teachers to respect the resolution reached while meeting the president. Arts teachers under the Uganda Professional Arts and Humanities Union were on a sit-down strike for 3 weeks over the salary disparities with their science counterparts. Buganda Road Chief Magistrate's Court has charged 28 youth accused of assaulting people in Kampala over the weekend in a so-called Egari. The accused were arraigned at Law Development Center, LDC Court, and Buganda Road Court in Kampala to answer charges of simple robbery, assaulting, and theft. The 28 who denied the charges claimed to have been used by politicians. Upon arriving at the court, they alleged to have been used by politicians who later denied their actions. The 14 suspects arraigned before Magistrate Doreen Ainembabazi were charged with 3 counts of theft, simple robbery of phones, money worth 1 million, and handbags and other items. They were also charged with other count of assault, to which they all pleaded not guilty to. Prosecution presented by Patricia Chitotho told the court that the investigations are still ongoing. Since they had no sureties, court could not release them on bail. Magistrate Doreen Ainembabazi remanded them to Luzira Prison until the 16th of July 2025, when they will come up for the mention of the case. Meanwhile, another group of over 14 were charged with offenses of theft and simple robbery by Buganda Road Magistrates Court. They all pleaded not guilty to the alleged offenses. Court remanded them until the 16th of July this year.
It's interesting to see them break down in the dock.
If they are the right ones. Now, a section of residents from Remiyaga, Zimbabwe district, led by their Member of Parliament, Theodore Sechikubo, have come to Parliament to ask the Speaker of Parliament to help them get justice for one of their residents who was gunned down Thursday last week. Sechikubo alleges that their offense was committed by retired generals from the Uganda People's Defense Forces, expressing the need to apply the provision of the UPDF Amendment Act to arrest and try them in the court-martial. Residents of Remiyaga in Zimbabwe district have appealed to President Museveni to withdraw the army camped at Intusi and Katunga barracks. This follows one of their residents, one Fred Sembusi, who was shot at and killed, and Moses Tibanengana, injured during a rally of the Member of Parliament Remiyaga Theodore Sechikubo in Kirenga Parish. The residents, led by their Member of Parliament Theodore Sechikubo, met the Speaker of Parliament on the plight of the people in Remiyaga. Sechikubo claims he had successfully held a rally in Bugorongoro, and when he reached at the rally in Kirenga, they were allegedly attacked by army men who fired at them, and one Sembusi Fred, 25 years, was killed. Sechikubo himself was injured. Meanwhile, Buyaga constituency Member of Parliament Barnabas Tinkasimire has refuted allegations that he faked his abduction. He said they have filed a civil suit to this effect. I liked the way he was narrating his story. It was more like a movie scene. Now, the High Court has dismissed legal charges to the re-election of His Eminence Sheikh Shaban Ramadan Mubajje as Mufti of Uganda, citing lack of jurisdiction and the need to uphold religious self-governance. In its ruling, the court found that while the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council exercises public functions impacting millions of Sunni Muslims, its powers are not governmental in nature and therefore not subjected to judicial review. The applicants who sought to nullify Mubajje's February 2025 re-election failed to demonstrate that the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council's actions warranted court supervision under public law. Justice Bernard Namanya further invoked the religious question doctrine, emphasizing that disputes over the election of spiritual leaders are inherently religious and fall outside the court's purview. Ooh. Well, back to you, Julie.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Robert, for that update on the local scene. Let's have a look at what is on the global scene, starting off with Israel that has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. U.S. President Donald Trump did say this, and during the proposed deal, we will work with all parties to end the war, Trump said in a post on Truth Social, without detailing the conditions or what the conditions are. The Qataris and Egyptians who have worked very hard to help bring peace will deliver the final proposal. I hope that Hamas takes this deal because it will not get better, it will only get worse, Trump wrote. Israel launched a military campaign in Gaza after Hamas's 7th October 2023 attack on Israel, in which around 1,200 people were killed. At least 56,647 have been killed in Gaza since then, according to the territory's Hamas-run health ministry. It was not immediately clear whether Hamas would accept the conditions of the ceasefire. Trump's announcement comes before a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, scheduled for next week, in which the U.S. president has said he would be very firm. The U.S. president said on Tuesday that he believed Netanyahu wanted to end hostilities in Gaza. Now, moving on to matters that are strictly U.S., the United States Senate has passed away a sweeping tax bill championed by President Donald Trump, sending the controversial legislation to the House of Representatives for what could be a final vote. Lawmakers passed the bill by a 51-50 vote in the Republican-controlled chamber on Tuesday after Vice President J.D. Vance broke the tie. The successful vote ended what was a marathon of 27 hours of debate in the upper chamber. 3 Republicans joined the Democrats to vote against the bill, which would enshrine many of Trump's signature policies, including his 2017 tax cuts reductions for social safety net programs and increased spending on border enforcement and deportations. Critics on both sides of the aisle have taken aim at the estimated $3.3 trillion the bill would add to the national debt. Others have blasted reductions to programs like Medicaid and Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, and they argue that the bill takes support away from low-income families to finance tax cuts that will primarily help the wealthy. Trump, however, has pressed for the bill to be passed by July 4th, the country's Independence Day. The legislation, informally known as the One Big Beautiful Bill, now heads back to the House for a Wednesday vote on the updated version. Coming to the motherland, Liberia's former president, William Tolbert, has had a symbolic reburial. 45 years after he was murdered during a coup, and his body was believed to have been dumped in a mass grave. 10 days after the president's killing, following trials by a kangaroo court, 13 of his cabinet were stripped, tied to stakes, and then executed by a firing squad on a beach next to an army barracks in the capital, Monrovia. None of the 14 corpses have been found, but each man got a state funeral at a ceremony attended by President Joseph Boakai and other dignitaries. The event was seen as an act of reconciliation and part of a process of the country coming to terms with its violent recent past. A grave dug for the funeral was left empty and unsealed in case any of their remains are ever found. The 12th April 1980 coup, in which 28-year-old Sergeant Samuel Doe took power, ended well over a century of political dominance by the minority Americo-Liberians, the descendants of freed black slaves who had come from the U.S. in the 1800s. Talbot's 9-year presidency was marked by growing dissatisfaction with the ethnic inequalities. Well, that marks it for what we have on the foreign scene, but quickly, let's have a look at what is in the press today. Robert.
Well, in the New Vision this morning, we have a comprehensive salary enhancement plan unveiled. Now, government approves 500 billion for arts teachers. And here, suspects charged over city robbery. Now, we see them in the dock, the suspects, but also still looking at the New Vision. We have Ben Hinn cautions pastors. What did Pastor Ben Hinn caution them over? Well, more of that in the New Vision. Now, coming down, we have over 10,000 sick people's Front for Freedom card. That is the PPF, a political party there. And police arrest editor over journalist's death. Which journalist? Well, the Vision has more of those details. Let me quickly go to the Daily Monitor this morning. And we have rulers of the streets. Who are these rulers? Well, there are quite a number of them on the front page of the Daily Monitor this morning. And a home layout that grows with your family. Now, also, there are some papers for students in the Daily Monitor this morning. But how new HIV prevention injectable drug works. Now, you need to know how this works because it's a breakthrough in the prevention of HIV/AIDS.
Yes, indeed. Now, let's have a look at what is in the Citizen today. And the headline there, self-reliance goal boost after record TRA collection. That is a headline in the Citizen, but also in the Citizen, fierce battles loom in CCM primaries, and also concerned as confidential documents end up as rappers. East African Common Higher Education Area under scrutiny, and also CRDP Bank's Kijani bond listed on Luxembourg Stock Exchange. Now, looking at the Daily Nation, Ruto's draconian bill on protests. And stung by a wave of youth-led anti-government protests, President William Ruto's administration has lined up a new bill that seeks to demarcate areas for holding demos, while stipulating fines and jail terms for anyone found in non-designated locations, such as Parliament, police stations, courts, and other protected areas. And also still in the Daily Nation, no thank you. Over 42,000 students shun varsity placements. Can you imagine? But also still in the Daily Nation, Uhuru reclaims Jubilee, Kalonzo revamps Wiper ahead of 2027 elections, and wait for your term to grow or pay debt, SHA to cancer patients. Where is the blogger Ndilangui? Judge tells DSI to end drama and produce missing man. And that marks it for what we have in the dailies today. Let's take a short break as we enjoy some music from Yemi Alade, Sauti Soul Africa.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Why? It's an African one. Yeah.
Beats by Amazon.
Yeah, me I like it. Something so. This my African hands, them gon' love you.
UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Now, I do not know how hot the road to 2026 is getting, but one thing for sure, by the time we are done with the general elections in 2026, some will be burnt to ashes and others burnt to perfection, just like gold. We are coming to you live from Nile Avenue. You are watching UBC TV. Time for Good Morning Uganda. My name is Julie Nantaba Musisi, and I am with Robert Chirabo Nyonyi Ntono here to take your day as we start it, being the first one to start your day. So it's such a pleasure and an opportunity that we do not take for granted that you are joining us to watch the show. Good morning. Now, a supporter of the NRM in Luwero has petitioned the party's electoral commission asking it to disqualify one of the contestants, aspirants for the Katikamu North parliamentary seat, Ronald Ndaula, claiming that he was announced bankrupt by court in the year 2020. That means he cannot contest for any political office until the matter is settled by court. How far this goes indeed,
I'll call you every day, yeah, yo.